First up,
Dolly.
Nate. You're up.
Already?
Already?
Okay, well, good evening or afternoon, Mayor and Council. Definitely appreciate being here. My name's Nate Geinzer. I'm the founder and CEO of Whitehall Solutions, who you've hired to run your executive search after the retirement of Scott after 4 years, I think, if I recall correctly. So tonight is a part of our process. We always want to start with a kickoff meeting with council. We want to make sure we provide as accurate a reflection of the opportunity that Whitehall presents to a city manager candidate. So we'll be talking tonight. I know you have a meeting at 6, so I'm going to kind of try to truncate things a little bit. And then I will be following up with you all probably tomorrow to start setting up. We'll have a one-on-one opportunity to talk as well. So tonight on my agenda, I'm going to try and just briefly go through our approach. I don't want to totally regurgitate the proposal you have seen, answer any of your questions. Then we're going to talk about just kind of the search process, some things you should be aware of and be ready for. I know a question came up at the meeting about what Strong Start is. I gave you a supplemental to kind of address that. It's not training, and we'll talk about the different pieces of why we have offered that, because that'll also be something you'll want to just keep in the back of your mind. And then we will get into a discussion, just helping me get some data so I can build out the profile. Does that all work for you guys? Excellent. Appreciate it. So we talked briefly, partly why we're here tonight is to help us build out the profile. We had a great opportunity to get a little bit of a tour of the community today, talk with staff. I'll be talking with you all one-on-one. There are a number of other ways that we can engage to inform the profile process. We have a very short survey that we could provide you, that you could send out to staff, community, what have you. We've also done stakeholder conversations before, virtual. We can do something like that as well. So if there is other folks that you want us to hear from to build out this profile on the person we are trying to attract to the city of Whitehall and to help inform us about who Whitehall is, let me know tonight and we'll get that put into motion. A couple things I let your city clerk know. There's a couple items that we're probably going to try and get on your next council meeting, which I think is the 22nd, correct?
I think so.
Okay. The first and foremost is the job description. We've been given a copy. It's pretty old. It's from 2003, what looks like the last time it was updated. So we'll offer you a refreshed one. Feel free to make any changes to it. You don't necessarily have to adopt it, but some of that content is going to be what we're going to use to inform somebody about the expectations of the job. So we'll provide that to you as a part of your packet. If you choose to adopt it or if you want it to look a little bit different, we're going to already check and make sure it aligns with your charter and other best practices. Just make sure we have the notes and we'll make the adjustments. As far as salary goes, I was provided the salary of your current city manager. What we do as a part of our search is I'm going to do a scan, right? Or I'm going to have, I didn't introduce Zach.
Hi.
Sorry, this is Zach Szymanski. He works up with us part-time. He's newer, December, I think, or end of November he started. Trying to get him out and about and exposed to the work that we do. MPA graduate from Wayne State. I'm sorry, Zach.
It's all right.
So anyway, back to salary. One thing that we've started to put in our proposals to make sure every elected body knows as we come in there, salaries are moving way more rapidly than when I was a city manager. Just about every single place that we've worked or other places where we've seen other consultants doing searches, it is not uncommon to see a posting or even a new hire to be anywhere from 10, and I've seen it up as 30% higher than the former manager. Few different reasons for that. One, it's market. You're seeing fewer folks tend to be available, fewer with experience. What the council or the elected body's trying to, or who they're trying to attract. Just to give you an example, the most recent search I was involved with, we did a scan. We said you should be good between 120, 140. They posted up to 160 because they were trying to attract a unicorn. We got him a great manager. But just to give you an idea of what some communities are trying to do, and that was a community of, I want to say just shy of 8,000. One of the benefits you have going for you is you're not too far outside of a major metro region. Between Grand Rapids, Muskegon, and even further north of here, I'm not as concerned as I would be in other areas about attracting interested candidates, because there's a lot of places that you can get to within driving distance to Whitehall. Let's see here. A couple things that we need from you all to get this search going and get the profile going is preferably we'll have a single point of contact, just so I have someone I can call for a quick conversation or a quick question. If it's okay, your city clerk's been awesome, super responsive. There are going to be times I'm going to be reaching out to you directly. When I send you an update, you're going to get regular updates from me. I wouldn't say they're like every single month. Usually I'll do an update on when we hit certain milestones. I usually will give you an update as we get into the search and just kind of let you know where the numbers are coming in at as far as number of candidates and what have you. Those would come from me. This is going to be more for like requests for information and things like that, like we did with the job description. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. Once we get a draft profile together, I will get that to you all, probably directly, but I'll also copy your city clerk just in case sometimes it doesn't come through and what have you. That draft profile is your opportunity to review how we're marketing your city. One thing that a lot of the consultants do, but one thing we're very conscious of is being honest with our candidates about the job opportunity and the challenges that they're walking into. The last thing we want to do is to not be transparent about challenges or opportunities or what have you. Again, most recent search, that council's been struggling. We addressed it in a very professional way. The candidate, eyes wide open, came up, he brought it up in the interview. He knows exactly what he's walking into, and part of it, the challenge, is what's attracted him in part. One thing I forgot to mention is typically you're not seeing as many candidates like looking to pick up and move between housing market, economy, two-parent working households, single parent, kids, what have you. It's a lot harder for somebody to pick up and move than maybe what they did 10, 20, 30 years ago. So you're most likely going to find somebody in the region. Interview questions. Interviews, we'll talk a little bit more about how the interview is structured as we get a little bit closer. Sometimes that's an area where it can be beneficial if there is a subcommittee, or if there's a couple council members that we can chat with to kind of put together a draft of the interview process. Sometimes that's helpful. Other ways I've ran it is I'll put together kind of a draft process outline based on everything that I've heard from you all throughout, and just give everybody an opportunity to review that. Questions you will get a chance to see before the interview day. I will already try to hit all the majors, not your typical like, what's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? It will be different than that. It'll be a little more robust than that. But you guys will all get a chance to see those. We do not bring those forward for approval though, because we don't want your questions out in the public before the interview process. Last but not least, we talked a little bit about the interview process. Just to give you a little more background on some of the ways I like to organize it, typically I like to do it over a 2-day period. I think Dundee worked really well. DeWitt Township was a different process, but it was again a back-to-back day. DeWitt Township, we did kind of a 75-minute interview day one, then they did a round two the next day where it was all scenario based. In Dundee, we spent the first day, that Friday, getting a tour of the community, interacting with staff, learning more about the process, almost like an orientation, and then the next day was the interviews. The council felt so strongly they had the right person, they deliberated that night and made the offer. We could come back on a Monday, a Tuesday, the next week to make a decision and deliberate. Again, we will work on those details as we get further along. I just don't recommend you sit on it too long because sometimes we can lose candidates throughout the process. Questions on getting to the point of posting this position? Any questions up to this point? I guess I didn't put a timeline in there. We're going to be targeting the week of April 22nd. I think if we push hard and I get your feedback on salary, I think talking with our communications person, we can hit that week.
Get April 22nd for what now?
The week of April 22nd, I'm thinking by the end of that week, we'll be able to post your position.
Oh.
Typically those postings are for a 30-day period. We can do it shorter, but like when you post on an MML or a Michigan Municipal League, ICMA, International City County Managers Association, typically it's a 30-day period that they give you when you post those jobs. And then we'll review candidates as we go. We don't wait until the very end to try to save us some time. We'll start a review process halfway through, and then we'll do a second process, internal review process, once the deadline passes. Questions so far?
Yeah.
All right. So just so you have, so you know how the vetting works internally before I come to you in your closed session, we're going to review candidates. They're going to come in. If they are qualified, meeting basic qualifications, depending on the number of candidates, we can sometimes we'll look at a more entry level. I think this community is beyond entry level. I'm not concerned that you're not going to attract experienced managers at this point in time. So what's going to happen is those that meet qualifications, they'll be sent a questionnaire. Usually that questionnaire is written. There's a couple basic questions, but I tailor a few of those questions based specifically on the position. So for example, one of the questions I've had and a couple different ones were on relationships with council, right? And how that can work, how should it work, how does it work better, how do you improve it if it is strained. I've done it on culture, like how do you look at team culture, staff, how do you make decisions, things like that. The reason we do a questionnaire still is, quite honestly, I want to know if you've done your homework. Have you actually looked on a map to see where Whitehall is? Do you know what services it offers? And the other thing is, quite honestly, and I hate to say it, I want to know if you can write. I'm not the perfect writer. I've learned a lot over my years, but I'm seeing folks that are half you-know-what effort into the questionnaire. That's usually a red flag. There's also been a couple cases where clearly it was AI and they didn't even make an effort to hide it. Those are red flags to me, and they're probably not going to move forward to the next step. Once we screen those and we get down to a smaller number, then we're going to do one-on-one virtual interviews with each candidate. Again, they're not just your typical simple questions. They're a little more robust. They're a little more conversational. At that level, I'm trying to look at, again, have they done their homework? How do they communicate verbally? I'm also looking for fit. That's part of why I'm here tonight, is to see what kind of characteristics we're looking for. From there, the last few searches we've done, I'll end up bringing about 10 to 15-ish, depending on how strong our candidate pool is, to you in a closed session. We will review those candidates. That is all allowed under OMA. When candidates offer confidentiality, they can request that. Because remember, these are all professionals. They're all employed. Well, most of them are all employed, and a search process can do real damage to a relationship if their counsel knows they're looking or what have you. One of the other reasons I take that very seriously is I know we're not California or anything like that, but there are cases where there have been lawsuits for somebody breaching confidentiality. There was a case recently in, I think it was like last year or 2 years ago in California. A council member on the hiring body leaked that candidate was going for the position. It got back to the council where he was working, where his contract was ending, and they were in the process of possibly negotiating another one. He said, "This job's not for me, I want to stay where I'm at." They were mad. He lost his job, and I think it was, I always get the two numbers mixed up, it was a $400,000 or an $800,000 settlement. So there is liability when we breach that confidentiality. Also hurts your reputation, hurts my reputation, so I take it pretty seriously. When we come out of that closed session, we invite candidates by number. You say we want candidates 2, 10, 27, 32, and 40, right? I then call all those candidates, invite them to interview. They get a little time to consider because they got to make phone calls to mayors, council members. They got to talk to significant others. They got to talk with their kids or what have you. Say, this is getting real. My name's going to go public. Are we going for this or not? Once they've all accepted, depending on the day that offer's made, usually they have the weekend. Then that next day, I'm coordinating with your staff, or we'll just do it for you. If the council wants it, we put out a press release, or we'll give you something to post on your social media. Here's your candidate, your finalists. And if we have the details of the interview process, the dates and times and all that, we'll put that in there as well. And our communications person will put that together for you. Something we are going to need, which so far what we've received from the clerk is going to be a struggle to make them work, and it's nothing she did wrong. We need some really good high resolution pictures. So if you all have any, I will probably be reaching out to the chamber, probably a couple other entities in town, to see if I can get some very high, it's got to be high res, like 2 meg and above, because we try to put together something real nice, especially things that are going to showcase your community, the lake, your neighborhoods, businesses, downtown, things like that. Those are the types of things that we're going to be looking for. Let's see. We talked about the search process. We talked about that. Any other questions on that at this point? Yes, please.
Suggestion for Brenda for the high res. Laura Connell
Yes.
runs a local site on Facebook where she posts, and she's a good one to check
Yeah.
with at least first.
Yeah.
A lot of scenic photos.
Great.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit briefly about Strong Start, which you guys went with our other search. Here's why we do that, or why we offer that. Right now, to our knowledge, nobody else offers that. My whole team has been through searches with all of our competitors. We've all been employees in one way, shape, or form with different governing bodies. If you want a city manager, city council relationship to fail quickly, it's typically because it didn't start out right. That relationship really needs to be set day one. And so how we're going to help you do that is once they're ready, and once you're ready and you have it scheduled, typically all your new city manager council relationships start with some sort of kickoff workshop. I don't know if I'd call it full-on goal setting, but what we're trying to establish is shared expectations. Because if you all don't have shared expectations of the manager, and the manager doesn't have a set of shared expectations for you all, that's where communication breakdowns happen, that's where trust breaks down, and once we finish a search and we leave, we don't know what you've done to build that relationship up and to set everything up in a good way. That's why we don't offer a 2-year guarantee on just a basic search, because once it's out of our hands, we can't support you, right? So we start with a kickoff meeting. Another big piece of it is the evaluation process. My whole team has been through bad evaluations, and I don't mean bad as being negative, bad as being poorly executed. An evaluation should really be a constructive two-way conversation. It should be feedback from you to the manager and manager to the council. How do we make this work better? Where are we falling short? It shouldn't be punitive. It should be very constructive. We do, let's call it evaluation light at 6 months, because a lot of times you'll know if there's cracks early on, and consider it an early warning system, right? If we're finding there's some gaps in the relationship, let's get on those right away, because it's really expensive to cycle managers, and once you get that reputation, it's really hard to breach that. Candidates are going to be looking, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then at 1 year, you get a facilitated evaluation. So if you saw James Petrano in there, he's starting to do all of our back-end support. He has facilitated a number of evaluations. He has an actual real process that has some structure and guides a really helpful and constructive conversation. He will provide that to you. And then throughout that 12 months, your city manager will get leadership coaching from a trained certified executive coach, and that's the supplemental that I gave you so that you know who that coach is, her background. Think of it as a thought partner. Think of it as someone to lean on, someone to get some guidance, someone to really help you be the best leader that you can be. Executive coaching's been around for a long time. If you've heard of names like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Enrique, what's his name? The Pepsi executive CEO. These are all folks that have relied on executive coaches throughout their tenure. Again, our goal is to make sure you start out and have a very successful relationship right out the gate. Questions before we get into a little bit of a workshop? And you have to speak during the workshop, because I can't make this stuff up. You guys good so far? Yeah. All right. So, just a reminder, you'll all have an opportunity to do a one-on-one with me. I know sometimes there are things that we want to say but we can't say, or we're not comfortable saying for one reason or another. That's irrelevant at this point in time. I'm really hoping that you will be open and reflective about what you all need so you can be the best version of yourselves, and how the city can be the best version of itself with the right leader in the city manager's role. So let's talk first about the challenges in the community. What are some of the challenges that you want to see this new city manager come in and address? Those could be relational, it might be capital improvement wise, it might be redevelopment, it could be all kinds of broad type or even really specific initiatives.
Capital is definitely one. I mean, we've got to do more with less. I mean, we only have a finite amount of money. It's not like we're growing in leaps and bounds.
Say your name again?
Tanya.
Tanya. Are you guys okay in a work session if I use first names?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Housing, which includes what was brought up at another meeting, the vacation rentals, but also affordable housing for seniors and young people to move into the area, and our housing stock, ways that we can help facilitate people to, if there are any programs to help maintain their homes. Because, we help businesses. I'd like to see us help residences as well. And streets, of course. You can put that at the top.
So before we move on, I've worked in a number of different communities. Affordable housing has all kinds of definitions. And you come from where I live, people are going right to Section 8. They're thinking projects, all this kind of stuff. That's not what affordable housing is. And quite honestly, the people that need that support are in your community working. They gotta have a place to live. Some communities are very anti that. Some communities want to provide that mix of community members at all socioeconomic stratus. You know what I'm trying to say. So how does Whitehall define affordable housing?
I think it's if people wanna live here, they can find a place they can afford. So it might be income subsidized, you know, but it's also, I mean, I'm sure this is a nationwide issue, you know, people are struggling to find rentals and homes that they can afford. And so I guess that's kind of a broader look at housing. Can people live? Can people afford to live here? Can we attract young people? Can we attract people to work here? Can our seniors continue to live in their homes or find, you know, something else, you know, so maybe different types of housing, like co-housing and things like that.
The aging in place type principles. Anybody want to add anything on that topic?
I'd like us to stop using affordable housing because it's meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Affordable is relative to where you're at in your financial situation. I'd like to say we need housing. We need to look at housing. But to call it affordable is
Depends on the context.
It depends on the person.
that's relative.
Yeah.
If you're a manager at Howmet or you're a hamburger slinger at McDonald's, what's affordable? It's not, they don't correlate. So we need housing. We need to look at housing.
Yeah, and I just added to that people can afford. I mean, if it doesn't
I
help
hear
if they can't.
Housing is an issue everywhere in the world,
That's what I said, yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, totally agree.
Other challenges that are on your radar that you see coming in the next handful of years or even tomorrow?
We definitely have issues with infrastructure that needs replaced, not just roads. I think our sewer systems, our water systems are certainly, to me, more important than roads. Roads are important, but there's a priority there. We have sewer lift stations that are gonna have to be replaced at a huge cost. I think,
And not get cheaper, that's
I
for
think
sure.
the people want their sewer fixed before the roads.
Different sources of funding, which it's not always easy for the community to understand where those dollars come from. Takes a little communication, a little extra education. And it's not always easy because sometimes your general fund might be a little healthier than your utility funds. You're also trying to align your projects. Why are you over here replacing this sewer when this one needs it? Well, we're doing this road is being done, so we want to take care of the stuff that's underground first. All kinds of complicated things to try to get through, especially when you're talking huge dollars. And the inflation on capital improvements has skyrocketed in the last handful of years. You're not able to get as much bang for your buck anymore. And that is also a very hard thing for a manager to work through these days and to communicate to the public. Other challenges, anything else come to mind? Just like, oh man, this new manager's really got to know about this.
I think it's been a challenge for our older downtown area to retain businesses. I don't know, what a new manager can do in that direction, but, it doesn't look good when you drive through town and a third of the buildings are empty.
Is there a pattern that anybody has identified? Is there any underlying reasons that you're aware of?
Just sprawl, you know.
Well,
just
that and the makeup of downtown, which is mostly professionals and not retail.
But even, it's just, people don't buy in-person retail.
You gotta find that niche and you gotta create that environment that attracts those niche businesses. There's a big mix of ways to do it. You've been doing a lot of things right, at least from what I saw earlier today. Sometimes it's just a matter of time. You've got a little bit of a contraction right now, so you've got probably your entrepreneurs, your small business folks that typically are gonna open something like that. They might hit pause for a little while, but there's a lot going. It might just take a little bit more of a nudge to get there. Any other?
I think the seasonality of a small lake city makes a difference. Because this is not a wealthy community, and there's the amenities that tourists want, in the way of restaurants and so on. It's not really here, I think. It's one of the things that people talk about. Is there's restaurants, but there's not the restaurants that a lot of tourists want to go to
You gotta
very often.
keep it open, keep it operating.
Well, that's debatable too, because if people are going back to, people like myself, I'd rather go to a local than a chain restaurant, because I want something different. And when we have those, we have amazing ones that are that way, and yeah.
It's finding that right market niche of what's missing in the community and what is the right price point, what is the right product, and it's different everywhere, right?
Yep.
Any other challenges?
I think we have a staffing challenge. There's so much work to be done, and there's simply not enough people to do it. Our staff is spread very thin.
Has that always been the case here? Is that more of like a post-COVID thing that's around? Is it a lack of resources? Like, what would you point to as part of the reasons with that?
Well, probably finances are one of them. I think our budget is pretty tight. I'm not sure if it's a post-COVID thing. I think it just has happened over time.
I think too, we've had an orientation towards using the staffing that we have, you know what I mean?
Everybody just picks up more
Yeah.
when somebody retires or something like that, so.
Which I think, maybe I'm wrong, we'll agree that's not sustainable. At a certain point, you'll break, something will break, staff will break, burnout, retention, all those types of things are things to be conscious of. I haven't dug this far yet. I'm thinking, I don't remember. Do you guys have a strategic plan or anything like that? Like,
Master plan.
you have the master plan, but we don't have like a, well, I won't say you won't have one. I'll start there first and take a look at that one. But usually master plans, vision, mission, goals, tactics, all that is sometimes different and a little more focused than a comprehensive plan of the community. Might not give you as much of a focus as far as where resources are needed based on priorities of the council and the community. So I'll look a little bit more into that. But that's definitely something that you'll want to have on your radar for sure. Anything else? Yes.
Things. We own a historic playhouse, and we own a marina on the lake. And those are not always easy for a small city like ours to maintain.
We also own a cemetery,
Okay.
which is another fund.
A lot of parks.
A lot of parks. We have a lot of parks, and it'd be good to keep them.
Hard to keep them all in use and maintained.
I think I'd also like to add just the changes in our climate. We had 3 extreme storms in less than 12 months. An extreme snowstorm, extreme windstorm, which caused tremendous damage, about $500,000. And then we had an extreme rainstorm that washed out one of our streets, and that is gonna challenge the general fund.
anything else before we start to look on the bright side of life? Anybody know the reference? Like the Brian? Monty Python? No? All right. Anything else? All right. Sorry if I can tend to be a little more casual than some people might expect. So if you want me to rein it in, just say, Nate, get your act together. And I can do it differently too, but I find this is a little easier to get people involved, get people engaged, you're not falling asleep on me, all that kind of stuff. All right. So there's a couple of different ways that we attract candidates. I want somebody who sees the challenges as an opportunity, but I also want to know what the community and the city council sees as real opportunities in the community. They're out there. I saw them today. I'm not going to speak to some of what my thinking is because this is not my town. I'm here to facilitate your process for your city manager. This is not about me. It's not about my company. It's about you. So what are the opportunities that just keep you up at night because you're so excited, or you can't stop thinking about, oh man, if we could only figure out how to get that thing in the budget. It doesn't always have to be money. It might be collaborations. It could be all kinds of things because we want to tell your story. So what are some of those opportunities?
Opportunities for the city manager?
The opportunities for the community and for the city manager. I mean, there's different ways you could look at this, right? City manager might look at it as, I learned today you have some retirements coming. That's definitely going to be a challenge of a loss of knowledge, but that's also an opportunity for a new city manager to build their team, put their fingerprints on an organization. So it could be as specific as that, or it might be something in the community. It might be, we've got this brownfield site that we have been trying to figure out how to redevelop. We're talking all scales.
I've heard from numerous people how they would love to see a dog park. They'd love to see a disc golf course. Things that people want.
Have you seen the goal document that we do, the goals document?
I have not been that far
That
yet.
we do every 2 years?
Okay.
Council comes up with a group of goals, and then we rate them, and then they go into a document for this 2 years, and we work towards those.
All right, I'm going to look at that before I say too much further. But as you go home tonight, because I know you leave a council meeting, you're like all about city, and you're reading everything, and you're on the website, and you read council minutes to your grandkids or your kids at night. But look at that goal sheet, and when you look at it, do you see tasks or do you see aspirations? Because if you're seeing tasks, I wouldn't call that a goal.
No, it's aspirations of what we want to see downtown.
Excellent.
And parks and streets and everything for the whole community.
So I'm going to look at that in more detail before we have one-on-ones, because that may help inform our conversations a little bit. What other opportunities are out there? Yes.
So I was first on council in 2006, and we had a blueprint for the downtown. A consultant came in, and he said something that has stuck with me, that I think sometimes I don't know, maybe we forget generally, is he says, you have something other communities don't. You have a lakefront that you can connect to your downtown. And and I think we're on the verge of maybe connecting it a little bit better, but, to help our downtown, with this gorgeous lake that we have, and the marina, and the park, flowing into the downtown. So I think that's a huge opportunity to make that work.
A lot of downtowns that would kill to have what you have.
I mean, quite honestly, you've seen it. So, I mean, you drove it. So, we're here, we live it every day. So it kind of gets,
Yep.
we got a lake, we got a marina, but you haven't just came here and went through it, you see it, it's fresh in your mind.
Mhm.
So
So
don't
one of the
hesitate
things
to
I-
use some of those things that you see that's like, ooh, and, or bring it to us and, or let us know what your thoughts are.
I'll
as
take
well.
some creative liberties.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you guys will be looking at it first before we put it out there. Where was I going?
I think we have, you know, we touched on it a little bit. We have the Playhouse, we have the marina, we have the lake, we have so many arts in this area. We have an
Trail.
opportunity. We have a bike trail
Sure.
that's a, you know, a lovely asset. We have so many assets that we have such an opportunity to not only thrive. I mean, we have, our downtown is small, which is not a bad thing. Maybe that means we don't have a lot of work to do to make it more vibrant. There's a lot of opportunity for growth that doesn't make us overrun with tourism, but will attract enough tourism to help with our economy. We have a fabulous playhouse that, you know, that's something that most communities don't have. So there's a lot of opportunity just with making the most of the assets that we have. That all of those things are opportunities.
So I remembered what I was going to say. Sometimes it takes a minute. But one of the things I heard from one of the staff members today, which is really cool in my mind, they said, we get to live where other people want a vacation. And what I think is really cool about that, because there's other places in this state and elsewhere where a lot of people vacation there, and it's not that big of a privilege to live there, if that makes sense. So you have a very dedicated staff to this community, and that's a culture that we're going to be able to put out there. All the benefits of working in a community like this. What other opportunities do you see
I'm
ahead?
gonna add to that, nature.
Nature.
We live in just a gorgeous place, you know, with all of the amenities that have been listed, but we have numerous parks ourselves. We have access to many other parks that are close to us. We're about 6 miles from, you know, the biggest lake entirely within our country's borders. We probably have our coastal dune system, that's, you know, that's amazing. That is, and it's world class, and you know, people take it for granted, but it is, that's the work that I do. I work for an environmental organization, and our coastal dune system is just top. I've had people come here from other countries and say, wow, and it's not, you know, it's not crowded, you can get to it. I've had people say, you can see the water. You know, they're out east in New Jersey, and, you know, they can hardly find a postage stamp size place, but then also the water is something that you can see, I mean, for the most part.
And access, like you said, Tanya.
And access,
Huge
yeah.
access.
Yeah, you don't have to pay for it. You
Nope.
can just park and walk down the pier or walk down the beach. It's gorgeous, and the entire area has many, many, many natural areas that people can get out to. And then I would add small town. I don't know if that's an opportunity, but everybody I know says it has that small town feel.
Expand on that for me. Tell me more about that. What is Whitehall's version of small town feel? Because that's going to be a little different for everybody.
Well, I think, maybe, I don't know, I think a lot of people have lived here a long time. I live in the house I grew up in, so I'm one of them. And I think I was maybe out of it 9 years. I've known people from here for decades, and I think that might be the case for other people, that there are a lot of strong connections. I mean, I can go somewhere, I can go over to the Book Nook by myself and sit there, and of course that's in Montague, but crossing the river, but I know people, so I think maybe that might be part of it. I walk my neighborhood all the time and stop and chat with the neighbors, or it has that small town feel to it. I don't know if that's enough.
Anybody want to add to that?
I walk around town a lot in the summertime, and it's easy to tell when people are not from here. I try to stop and talk to them and ask them how they've been received, and invariably they talk about how friendly people are and how helpful they are and how much they would like to live here. I think another aspect that doesn't get brought up much is how close we are to a national forest. 10, 15 minutes you can be out in a national forest from here with all the possibilities that exist for recreation there.
And the state park.
State
Yeah,
parks,
State park.
county parks.
Michigan Adventure. I mean, it's all within,
Well, and there's one more thing that maybe not everybody partakes in, but we have a lot of local, relatively free music. You know, we're an artsy, I mean, there's the Arts Nuveen Center, the Arts Council, and you can go to lots of different places, and, you know, Whitehall gets to have Tommy Foster every Monday, starting with Memorial Day. Tommy Foster and the fan club outside, you know, and that's a huge, we closed the street last year, which has made it larger, and it's a huge draw to people. I had a cousin from out of town had stopped in, and he's like, can you imagine City of Whitehall having something like this, you know? Amazing musicians.
Other opportunities.
world-class salmon fishing,
World-class salmon fishing.
tournaments north and south of here,
Don't forget our
bass fishing in what, yeah.
Ducks
I mean,
Unlimited.
Yeah, Ducks Unlimited.
Oh, yes, I heard about that
Ducks
today.
Unlimited.
We're definitely highlighting that one.
Yes.
That's in my notes. That's a really cool story.
Essentially, we're the headwaters of the White River, so splits the two towns. So anything that goes up that river comes through this town, you know, splits the two towns, so.
All right. Anything else?
Would our history be an opportunity? We've got a huge, rich history. I used to write a column for the local paper, and I wrote a lot about the history, and it's just so fascinating to, you know, I suppose every community has its own unique history, but I kind of feel like ours is like better.
We usually, I don't think we've done a search yet where we didn't have a section about the community's history.
Yeah.
So that will definitely be touched on. So that'll be a part I'll expect you to have some comments on. You got this date wrong or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything else before we
I don't know.
ask a related question?
We have a world-class employer within our city.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Howmet, right?
Yes,
9 plants in the city of Whitehall.
there's not a jet engine in the, just about in the free world that doesn't have their parts in it.
Yeah, that's one of the, I'm gonna, either through Scott or try to go through, right through them. I wanna get a picture of that window where the jet is kind of blown apart and it's right there at that window as you're driving by it.
Yeah.
That's one I wanna have in our profile.
Don't forget the highlight, they're no slouch either in their
Which one?
highlight.
Yes, I think we went by there too today.
They're doing very well.
All right.
And one
Yeah.
other thing, we have the lake, we have White Lake, but we also have, through White Lake, you have access to Lake Michigan. Not everybody that's on a lake has access to Lake Michigan, which is pretty important.
I better write this down, I'll forget what it means. You ever write an abbreviation for something and forget what you abbreviated?
Yes.
Far more often than I'd like to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And remember, we are going to be talking again, so if something comes to mind later, you can also call, text, email anytime. All right. Are there any major initiatives that are currently underway that we should make sure they're aware of? Any major CIP projects? Do you have a millage getting ready to expire? A bond initiative? Any of those types of things that maybe, because I don't think we really covered too much of that. We talked a little bit about where the road efforts are at and the state of the local streets fund and some things like that and the cost of capital. But is there anything else that's been on council's radar that you've been working on over the years?
I think a major thing that's going on is the addition of an amphitheater or connection to the lakefront, to downtown, West Colby. It's been something that's been in the works for a long time, at least that development of that connection.
I know we're in the process of getting that site cleared. Has there been any planning work done on that yet, or are there any renderings that are out there somewhere?
There are renderings, yes.
Awesome.
They'll be discussed at this Thursday's meeting, TIFA meeting.
Other big projects, private, public.
Tannery Bay project is working,
They'll be taken off of phase 3.
yeah, shortly. What other projects we have?
The
Pocket
city
Park.
development of the section of the Tannery Bay traded or swapped out, that section of the
The public access.
public access part,
Yes.
yeah.
That's
That's on tonight's
moving
start.
forward.
Yeah.
Anything else come to mind?
That's putting in a big new plant.
Oh yeah, saw that. That's a big expansion.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of things that someone that's doing their research is going to see and pick up on, like the IFTs that are going to fall off, the revenues that are coming in the future, the opportunities to invest those dollars in services and other things. All right. Now, go
I
ahead.
think the apartments that are downtown are an opportunity for more people to be in the downtown and support local businesses and maybe even,
See, there's one in there now.
yeah.
Business.
Yeah, well, and what I'm thinking is if you have a downtown, you have to have people to populate it. And so if you have people who live downtown, you know, then maybe somebody will come and open a coffee shop or things like some more retail.
Yep, absolutely. You'll typically see that when you have communities that take on those types of development initiatives, where you're bringing in a little bit more diversity in the housing. You'll usually see an uptick downtown. You're absolutely right. And people want that. People will pay that premium
That's a
to be
private
there.
development.
Yep. Last call before we change subjects-ish. All right. Okay, I'm gonna introduce you to somebody. Maybe. A great artist. Your new city manager. There they are.
At least he's smiling.
Should he not be? Or she?
He should be.
All right, good, good. All right. So I need to walk out of here tonight, today, knowing more about this person. And the first thing I want to touch on is, tell me about this person's character. Like, who are they as a person? What do they, what kind of qualities do they put out? You know, what's their aura? You know, those types of things. Let's start there.
Need to be approachable.
Approachable.
Friendly.
What else?
Trustworthy.
Thick-skinned.
Yeah, that's kind of a minimum qualification these days. Look, not thick skin. We want thick skin. I don't know what thick skin is.
Patient.
Patience.
Hardworking.
prompt
Organized.
with responding to council or taxpayers for that matter. Available, I guess, say.
Transparent.
No, transparent? Okay, we're gonna pause. I hear transparency all the time. Everybody's got a different definition of it. Some might argue it's overused, but there is a critical role that plays. Tom, can you tell me a little bit more about transparency from your point of view?
Somebody that communicates the same way to everybody. The message is the same, basically.
Not always easy, but super critical. We talked about relationships being really important. To have a city manager for 20 plus years is not an easy thing. This next person may not be that long, but when we come in and do your kickoff meeting, one thing I go through is some of the things that are going to get in the way of a positive council manager relationship. And one of those things is the perception, even if they are giving the exact same information, which is nearly impossible, just the perception that, Tom, you're being left out of a critical piece of information undermines trust, right? And so figuring out how best to communicate, because Tom, you might like email, but Debbie might want phone calls because she wants to be able to ask follow-up questions, and it's more conversational, but you're like quick and to the point, or whatever it happens to be. The manager's got to find that right mix and then figure out how to communicate that same message through your preferred communication approach. Not always easy, but critical. I know exactly what you're saying here. Others, what does transparency mean? What does transparency mean in Whitehall?
You know how decisions are made, what factors are involved, and who's making them, and the rationale. You may not agree with it, but at least you know.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen anybody agree all the same. Anything else? Any other characteristics that we want to highlight?
Good communicator. Clear communicators, so that when they talk to people, people are getting what that person is trying to get to them. It's not murky, so, hopefully they have good knowledge of and use of their vocabulary.
Hold that thought. Who just said that?
Me.
Jeff, hold that thought. We're going to get there.
They have to be organized.
Hold that thought.
Write it down. That's what I did.
Anything else on characters?
They gotta be critical thinker too, and they gotta be able to think on their feet, because like Tanya brought up the three instances of the natural disasters we've had in the area. This person needs to either, again, be able to delegate to the person they need to, or have that knowledge to be able to deal with the incident.
Anything else? All right, so that you don't forget, we'll go there next. I want to know what kind of leader this person is. Now, yes, there's going to be some crossover, right? And when I say leader, I'm not just talking about somebody that leads their staff. Somebody that leads the council. Don't take that the wrong way, but they need to provide the guidance, they need to provide you the information, the communication, so you can be your best version of yourselves, right? That's what I mean by lead. It's not that they're, steering you in certain directions or what have you. But then there's also a leader as far as leading in the community, right? They play a role in the direction the community is going, keeping it sustainable, providing those public services. So think of it from all those different aspects, if you would. And I heard delegate and organized, right? So
To give tasks to his subordinates that are able to come back and bring it to him without physically, him or her being physically have to do it themselves. It's one of the things I've seen in my career is everybody wants to take it and do it all themselves, and you can't. It doesn't, you end up with a subpar.
I finally relinquished today and let somebody drive me here. It's hard to
Oh,
delegate.
absolutely.
He wasn't happy with the radio selection.
And Debbie, organized. What does that mean?
Well, there are a million moving parts with this kind of a role, and to be able to keep track of it all and have it at the tip of your finger on a moment's notice is critical.
I almost wrote something and I don't want to lead you guys because my job today is not to lead.
I can't see it anyway, so it doesn't.
Sorry, I didn't write it down. I'm going to see if it comes up, and if it doesn't come up, I'll ask you about it if I remember.
Has
What
to
else?
be a good, well, as you said, mentioned earlier, there's gonna be retirements in our staff here and there. And in the future years, he's gotta be a good judge of character so that he can get the proper people hired into the positions which are part of the city, could be major parts of the city.
Oh, that's what I'm looking for.
I would add to that, be able to manage appropriately as well,
Yeah.
staff.
If you hire the right people, then they manage. We've got some good managers in the city.
Draw out the best from the employees.
Ooh. Who said that? Is that you, Tom? A plus. That's so critical, because when your staff is not at your best, everybody knows. What else?
I think it's good to have a leader that's valued by the people that they lead.
So how do they get there? Mayor?
How do they get there?
How do they get valued? What is it behind their leadership abilities that makes staff value that person?
I would say doing a good job at their job. Not everybody that does a good job is liked.
What else?
They should be curious.
I don't think I've heard that one before when I've done these. I love that one. Why do they need to be curious?
So they don't settle for status quo and are asking questions, wanting to understand and learn and investigate opportunities, like that.
Draw ideas out of people.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Draw the ideas out of people.
Not putting words in your mouth, Tom. But is that related to empowerment?
Yeah.
Okay. And that probably plays into the mayor's about being valued. Because if you worked in an organization where you didn't feel empowered to provide those ideas, I don't know too many people that value that position when they don't have that opportunity. What else? Any other leadership characteristics or leadership qualities or approaches that we want to make sure we talk about?
They need to be a forward thinker.
Forward thinker. Different from curious.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing, as the old adage goes, they're playing chess, not checkers.
Yep.
Be open to learning more. Kind of comes under curious, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Related. Along the lines of being hardworking, I think being driven, not just settling for status quo, but always looking forward to see what's next and how we can get there and be effective.
Sometimes you need that looking forward to get you through today.
I'm not sure what word it would be, but our city manager would need to work with a lot of different people in the White Lake area. There are a lot of collaborations, and sometimes some of them are challenging.
Ability to network.
Ability to network, but also to, I'm not sure what that word would be, to, you know.
Collaborator?
I think collaborator, but networker, I mean, definitely understanding that, you know, the city manager for the city of Whitehall is not an isolated position. You know, that there are other, that they're expected to network with people in the White Lake area, other elected, other city managers, people in the county. Yeah, so that's an expectation, and ideally they do that well.
Yeah, I heard that today. If they're not good at it, some of the folks I know in this county are gonna make sure that person shows up, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll hear about it.
Anything else on leadership?
Trust.
Well, that is
Probably
definitely,
falls in there somewhere, but
absolutely it does.
it's gotta be trust, not just from staff and city council, but the entire community.
It's hard to follow somebody when we don't trust them.
Listen,
Did I put that on
it's probably
there?
up there too.
I think I had it over here, but it's still part of this one. Yeah, I had a coworker.
We should change that to hear people. It's different.
Yes, I got that one over here. I was just gonna say, was it Covey or Covey? The what is that? 7 Habits of Highly.
Covey.
I don't know. Is it Covey?
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
to
Stephen
listen to
Covey.
understand. It's very tempting for a manager to want to solve problems, to answer things right away. It takes a lot of years of practice. I'm still not great at it, of making sure I have heard everything that's been said, right? Because if I'm over here trying to solve the problem already and haven't heard what the whole problem is, communication breakdown, might direct them in the wrong way, all kinds of potential cons to that. Anything else on leader?
Accountable.
Accountable. Tell me more about accountability.
Owning your actions and the result of them.
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Owning your, taking responsibility for your actions and the results of them. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is.
Buck stops here.
Yeah, I guess somewhere along that line.
So, too often, I think people jump to the definition of accountable as being negative.
Right.
Not necessarily think of it being a negative word. What are some of the positive ways that a city manager could show to a council, to a community, their level of accountability for the work that they're doing?
You have to be realistic as far as what is possible as budget-wise, instead of just promising the world, leading people to not set their expectations too high, and to be realistic.
Last call before we go to the next one. Okay. We're gonna step out further again. Let's talk about visibility. And usually this is one of those questions that I might get into in my one-on-one conversations with candidates. Talk to me about the city managers, in your mind, this person right here, their level of visibility. Now there's a lot of different ways you can look at that. I think of it usually in terms of internal visibility and external visibility. We've talked a little bit about things that would tell me open door policy, things like that. How would you like to see them engaged internally and externally to this organization?
I don't think I am clear on what you're asking.
So, it can be very difficult, especially these days, to set boundaries, right, for a city manager. There's a balance to strike. What I mean by that is, we're always on, expected to be on. Some communities have even higher expectations than that. We want you at every single event. We want you at every single meeting in Muskegon County. So, obviously, we don't want this person hiding behind a desk all day. Is that fair to say?
Visibility has to be realistic.
So tell me what that means, Jeff.
Like you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, he can't be everywhere, or she everywhere at once. They got to, they've got to, I don't want to say pick their poison, but essentially where they're going to go.
Yep.
Make a decision based on maybe what's on the agenda or something else like that, or I'm going to go here or go there, kind of like what our county commissioner does. He's got a whole bunch of places to be, and he picks one and goes.
So someone, I heard it whispered in the audience.
Somebody said.
Somebody that can prioritize
Yes.
those different levels of expectations.
And whether they actually join or
Troublemaker
are
in
a
the back.
member of the committee, because I think there are certain bodies that are looking for, our city manager to participate in more than just showing up at a meeting every now and then. So just trying to, understand how best to allocate their time and,
Or delegate.
or delegate, yeah. And I wouldn't expect them to be on at all the times. I think that would be, even in a small community like ours, that would be really challenging, especially for the city manager. It's like my mother, who was a teacher, who didn't like to go out and about because she saw, you do it for 20 or some years, she liked people, but,
It's my mother-in-law's life.
well, it's just, she didn't want to go out in the community and have everybody stop her every 2 minutes, and she did once in a while, so.
Visibility could come under writing or blogging, I suppose.
Mhm.
This is what the city has accomplished this month. Maybe this was my part in it, or whatever.
So, communicating outwards.
Yeah. He doesn't have to be seen everywhere.
Right.
He can be seen by his communications.
Yeah, this one's a little bit of a trickier one. Anything else come to mind?
I do believe the city manager's job is a 24/7 job.
So, you're not wrong. But you have to be conscious and remember that these people are people. They're not robots. Burnout is real. This job is not as easy, well, it never was easy, but it's getting even harder. That's one of the reasons some of the work that we're doing and expanding is really about trying to provide that support network. There's a lot of folks out there that are feeling the pressure of leading complex organizations in a growing less than civil environment, I guess we'll say, than what I remember when I was first starting. It's just gotten a little bit harder. You have to have a thicker skin, but especially, just to get a little personal for a minute, especially when you have a family, you've got kids at home or what have you, it's not easy for a manager to just shut it off, right, when they walk out the door. Now they gotta be ready when the windstorms hit, They all know and expect that. But that's where I go back to what we were talking about originally, that shared expectations, like the communication expectations, setting boundaries. There are ways to be on 24/7 but still have boundaries, right?
I think it's balance, learning how to prioritize and balance, because we don't want somebody to get burned out, and we don't want somebody that, misses every family event, so I think definitely balance, We like living here, and we want them to like it too.
We want them to want, if they're of that age, to want to have their children involved here in the schools and to be involved with them in the schools and,
At least we've got cell phones now, right?
a welcoming community is what we would want them to see in this town. Be part of it. I guess being part of the schools would make them feel really a part of the city.
All right, anything else? Yeah, we're gonna run out of space on here. All right. I think we've already covered that one. All right, we're gonna start with a new page, because usually this next question draws out a lot. So, as we started talking about relationships, I want you to describe to me the relationship the city manager should have with the city council. Now remember, when we're talking about this question, the manager works for the council. The council is a body. They don't work for an individual. However, they're responsive to an individual, right? You might have questions. You might want a little bit more explanation. You might have, what am I trying to say? Especially as a council member, people know who you are. They're letting you know about issues and things like that. So there's going to be two-way communication, right? How do you envision a very cohesive and synergistic, we'll try to throw every big word I know into the conversation. Tell me about that relationship. Because if we are out there talking with folks that aren't going to be able to hit that level of expectation, especially if it's a realistic expectation, we're going to set you up for a harder start than somebody that is ready and knows what this expectation is.
What exactly are you asking?
Your relationship with the city manager. How they should be interacting, how they should be communicating. We've talked about some of this stuff.
As a body or as an individual?
Yes, both.
Both.
Yep. Yep. And you can tell me more about the individual when we talk. I'll have some questions on that specifically to you. We talked about, I think it was Tom, you had said same information to everybody, right? So yes, that is definitely something that would fall under here as well. Decision-making processes, how that works, budget. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could look at, but I'm thinking more big picture, not necessarily minutia.
I've always felt like I could call the city manager and set up an appointment if I needed to, and he would be open to doing that anytime. And in fact, if I was in here for some reason and walked by and saw him sitting at his desk and tapped on the window, well, I don't know if he's ever waved me away. It's like, come on in, He's always been open to visit with the council, as far as I could tell. And I like that.
Yeah.
I would agree, but also, I think responsiveness
Yeah,
you know. I mean, you can tell when
by
somebody.
email and stuff like that.
Yeah, by email and things, and recognizing that they have a lot of competing priorities, but having the ability to get an answer fairly quickly or address an issue
Mhm.
that's
So-
on your mind.
When you, so I've heard responsiveness come up a couple different times. I don't know what I want to call it. You might call it a communication hierarchy or what have you, but you have like DEFCON 1 and then you have DEFCON 5, right? So when you're talking about responsiveness, are we talking about, hey, tell me about this project, or are we talking about, holy crap, a tree just fell on some person's house type? Because there's different levels. Again, we were talking about boundaries a little bit earlier. I got to the point in my career, particularly with my staff, but we worked it in with council as well, and for the most part it worked really well. If it's an emergency, you call or text. Because if I'm trying to be on email every minute of every day, especially in this climate, I read the wrong email right before I go to bed or before I sit down and hang out with my kids, I'm done, right? So try to shut the email off when you leave, unless you know something really hot's going on, right? That's why I'm asking a little bit more about responsiveness, because that helps me describe to these candidates about, again, those expectations that the council has of them.
I think a reasonable, like what Steve said, if you see that the city manager is available, if, you know, unless they've got a time grant or something, that they chat with you, you know? Or if you email, that you get a response in a reasonable amount of time. You know, and it's gonna be different,
Yep.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but usually, you know, usually I get a response back in a day, or if I leave a message, I get a call back that day, so I think that's pretty good.
How are you guys on like weekend stuff? Calling, texting all the time?
I wouldn't bother the city manager.
Only in an emergency.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll love to hear that. What else? Tell me more about this relationship. Grabbing coffee once a week, beers after. I mean, again, this kind of goes more to your communication styles and how you engage and interact to get what you need to do your jobs as elected officials.
I don't think there's much personal communication off council meeting interactions with the council and the city manager. I think, as Steve said, weekend, it's like, unless it's emergency, there's
Yeah.
really, I mean, you don't want to spend your weekend with your essential employees.
Well, I think we let them have a level of there's a professional distance, I would say.
I like that. None of this stuff's like copyrighted or trademarked or anything like that, right? I can use that? All right. Anything else come to mind? All right, I'm gonna ask this question in a different way. And this one I'm gonna say, answer this as a body. We'll talk about it again on when we talk individually. Better change my color. What don't you want as a city council in your next city manager? Like, if what are going to be the one or two red flags that you're like, you get in, you see a candidate's information, or we're in an interview process that's like, no go, I'm off. That's not someone I'm looking at, or characteristic, or whatever it happens to be.
Gotta have some kind of a feeling of trust. I don't know
So untrustworthy.
how to word that properly, but
I think temperament, I'm not crazy about quick to anger folks. I don't, that might be just me.
Doesn't get you very far when you are quick to anger.
No, I mean, it's somebody who acts consciously versus unconsciously. Conscious behavior.
Anything else that you're like, with everything that we've got going on as a body, as a council, like, this thing will not help things any at all.
My way or the highway attitude.
My way or the highway.
Good one, Tom.
I heard good ones, so we'll put an explanation right there. Anything
Someone
else?
without a particular social media agenda.
Say that again.
Someone without a social media agenda. Someone that wants to come and serve the city, not themselves.
Okay.
You know, like
I don't want to go,
carpetbagger.
I've got some very specific things in mind here. So I'll ask this in the form of a question. Is this at all related to the word ego? Or are you thinking of this social media presence as something different? Because I do know of folks that use social media for the job as a means of self-promotion. I also know some, it doesn't happen as much anymore, but, or are you talking more along the lines of social media activity that might present a picture of less than neutral thinking?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I wanted the clarity there. Thank you.
This is not a real flamboyant town, so it might not be appropriate for somebody, some people, you know.
Right.
If that's what you're kind of looking for.
Okay,
Everyday kind of people.
all right. What else? Anything else? All right. Covered that, covered that, covered that. Look at that, we're ahead of schedule. Give you a little longer of a break. Okay, before we start to wrap things up, I told Brenda and Zach, one of you kicked me. We're still going at 5:45. I want to make sure you get a break before your meeting. Do you have any questions before we start to wrap this up? Or anything else you want me to be aware of? Your communication expectations of me, like I said, typically milestones is going to be when you're going to hear from me. If you want something more frequent, just let me know. Anything else?
I guess I have a process question. I know
Yep.
we're, next up is going to be our one-on-one
Mhm.
with the council. You also mentioned a survey as well as potential meeting with some of our citizens and things like that. How do we go about getting that on? Because that was pretty important. I heard a lot of feedback on that to make sure we have, you know.
So survey's easy.
Okay.
I've got it all ready. It's pretty standard and it gives folks the ability to provide open responses as well. Again, I'm using it more as a way to define the profile and the community and the needs and the opportunities and challenges and all that. That I can have to Brenda, tomorrow's Wednesday, right? Probably tomorrow. And I don't know what your communication channels are, if you want to put that out, send it out to your media folks, if you want it on social media, that can happen. You guys just tell me if there's consensus. Anybody have a problem with putting out a survey for additional input?
It should be controlled by the council.
What was that?
The people that it goes to should be controlled by the council.
Well, the survey?
Yeah.
Okay, so, not,
Unless it's gonna be like everybody in town, you know, it's like,
well, it would be, so, I think I know where you're going. Because this is not a statistically significant survey, right? When you use SurveyMonkey, you have to take it with, perspective, right? A lot of times, but not always, you might be surprised. you're definitely gonna see this person responded to the survey because either A, they have a very strong grievance, or C, they have a really high positive thing. That's usually what draws people to surveys. I've actually been kind of surprised on the last couple that we've done. The majority are really super constructive. If you're going to only direct the survey to certain folks, I wouldn't do it, because you will get the criticism that you kept me out of the process, right? I would either do it or don't.
But how do you decide who's gonna get it then?
You just put it out. Social media,
Website.
website,
Okay.
press release, no direct invites if that's what you're
That's
suggesting.
what I
When's
thought you
the
were gonna
next,
do.
when's the next water bill due? It's a while, isn't it?
We
Just
missed the
came
next
out,
one,
so-
right. It'd have to be more
But we have that,
immediate. We can put it on the website.
yeah.
And that's what most communities have done. They'll put on their website, they'll put out a press release. Depends on how active your press is up here. I'm not totally aware of your press environment up here. So that's easy. If it looks like I'm hearing consensus, I'll get that to Brenda tomorrow. As far as the stakeholder conversations, that gets a little bit trickier because everybody's got different ideas
Right.
on who those stakeholders are. I would say the easiest way to do it is you just say, Nate, we want you to grab, I guess I'll call them collaborators in the community, you know, kind of your, I hate to say it as no-brainers, but the obvious ones. Schools, chamber, you know, if you have like a merchants group or something like that, sometimes you'll pull that group in. Basically, it's folks that lead a representation of a larger group of people, like membership, things like that. I have also seen it to where everybody's kind of asked for their lists. Maybe everybody gives two names. That can get a little bit challenging at times. I can tell you the one I would definitely steer you away from is, it's no offense to the mayor, but just saying one person gives the names. Because I've seen that happen, even when that wasn't the intent. They were trying to put together a list of names and some council members read that wrong, and that created a little bit of a rift. We got through it. I was the interim, I helped communicate what the real intent was. We got through it, right? But we just want to make sure it goes to that communication question. So yes, it can happen. It's probably virtual. Usually on a group of that size, I'm trying not to get too far over 10 because the larger the group, it's a lot harder to have a productive conversation, especially virtually. The other way that I've involved stakeholders in the past is in the interview process, which gives you a little more time to kind of think about as a group, who would those people be? I've used stakeholders on roundtables, not to give you or steer your decision in a certain way, but as another avenue for data. So I'll go back to the original question about the this step of the process that we're in right now. I would either give me the direction to just do it, which you'll have to understand I probably won't catch everybody, or maybe it's everybody gives 2 people. The challenge with that sometimes is I don't know all the dynamics, but if like I end up with 2 people that absolutely hate each other, it can be really hard to keep the conversation rolling, and it can turn off some of the other participants. So there's a balance to be stricken there. I don't know how well that helps you, Debbie, but that's kind of some different options there. Like I said, I'm open to it. I mean, you're not going to see any extras from us or anything like that unless we're like so far over. You want me up here 20 different times or something like that, then we're going to have a conversation. But right now, I already expect at least 4 trips up here. And I've got friends up this way anyway, so I'm not worried about doing a little more.
So a survey is on your.
That's easy. Survey, done, check.
Will that be limited to Whitehall City people?
It's not really easy to do that, but usually I'll put not usually, I do put a question on there on how you're affiliated with the community. Now, yes, people can flood that, but usually I'm asking, are you a resident, non-resident, business, elected or appointed? So that might be like your planning commission members or what have you, and staff. That's for the survey results are for our use, and it's to inform the process, yeah, I don't really have a way when you're not doing it in a statistically significant way. I don't have a way to like geofence it to just Whitehall. Long answer to an easy question.
Are the survey questions similar to what you would ask if you were going to meet with a group of folks?
Very similar, yes. I don't know if I can pull it all from memory, but I've got a couple questions that are going to be they're like a big long list of characteristics, much like we did here. I want to know what people value as far as a leader goes, as far as characteristics. I have some open-ended questions on there. I think one is, one has to do with cohesion. And sometimes folks don't exactly know where I'm getting at, because sometimes it's a question written for staff, but it's really for everybody as well. That's probably a question I'm going to relook at and make sure it makes sense. So like building more collaboration in the community, building a better culture, things like that.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if we get a robust response to the survey, is that, are people going to feel heard? And, you know, like everybody out here right now, if you guys fill out the survey and make sure we get it back, does that feel like you've been included and get your questions answered and things like that? I mean, I know we can't talk to everybody individually and do all of that, but I want to make sure that people feel like they have some input into this process. And I don't know how to do that without some sort of one-on-one, unless the survey is sufficient.
How about we do this, if everybody's open to it? Because I'm not opposed to coming up here again. Like I told this to another community that was interviewing us, especially if we're able to coordinate it efficiently. I'm not opposed to coming up here and sitting in here, sitting in a coffee shop, just having some roundtable discussions. We'd have to figure out exactly how to, I don't want to say control in the negative form, but control as far as I can't have 100 people in a coffee shop, right? So we'd have to kind of figure out what those logistics look like and what the intent of it is. So if we started with the survey, and we give it a week or so, because we're not going to let the posting of the job stop the input, because the input will still be valuable as we get into the search process, or the vetting process, excuse me. I'll be able to tell you in a couple weeks, hey, this is going really slow. You guys want to schedule something else? The other thing to keep in mind too is we have the vetting process, right? Again, it's not extra. I'm up here anyway, right? If you want to do an open house as a part of the search process, we can certainly do that. Again, I've seen that done multiple ways with comment cards or even like a QR code. Again, same types of things you can run into with a survey, you can run into with an open house. But what I like about that, when it's done well, is it gives you as the elected body some sense of how this person's going to be under stress, how they communicate, how they draw people in or don't draw people in.
How they work the room.
What was that?
How they work the room.
How they work the room, yes. So there is value to that.
Yeah, that too.
Again, we can have a stakeholder group be a part of the process. Just so you all know how I handle that. I mean, if you really push me hard, I'll relent, but I believe pretty strongly in it. I don't give you that feedback. Like, let's say, for example, we do it like, what was it, Royal Oak. where we had a staff roundtable and we had a stakeholder roundtable as part of this. That feedback from those roundtables come to you after you interview. Reason I do that is I don't want that data to bias you going into the interview. I want every candidate to have a fair shot with you, and then sometimes it's Zach, sometimes it's me. We will walk you through what we heard from those stakeholder groups. I tried something different with Dundee. I actually really liked it. AI is not perfect. It's growing on me. I still don't like it. But you went through the facilitation with the staff in Dundee, and we've been using this like 6 quadrant type thing that we came up with. It's nothing fancy, but it's basically 6 different characteristics, and it's a group of comments. I plugged all that in. I said, tell me about the person that represents all of this, right? And the summary that it put out was almost so spot on it was scary. And so I cleaned up a little bit of the language, but what that did then is it's kind of, there's probably still some bias in there because there's bias all over the internet and what have you, but it kind of boiled down all those comments into something very digestible, like a 1 short paragraph summary of candidate A, B, C, and D, right? So that's another way that we've used stakeholders, whether it be staff or if you want, you know, a handful of folks. When we did Traverse City DDA, there's a lot of nonprofits up there. We had different nonprofits. We had the county. We had a representative from the county because we shared the same building. Those types of things. All that can be done. It's almost infinite what we can do with the process. We just need to find the right way to get that consensus there on what that process is going to look like.
When you talk about stakeholders, in this survey, you talk about wanting just Whitehall residents, but to me, all the municipalities surrounding Whitehall are stakeholders in our community. What this council does has effect on all those municipalities that surround us. I would certainly like to hear from those people as well.
Again, it's open to everybody, but actually we're having dinner with one of your neighbors after this, a friend of mine. But if you all say, yep, we want those involved, I'll send it to those managers. I know almost all of them around here. Just say, hey, want you to chime in. That can also be part of the process. Again, it's your comfort level.
That own businesses here but don't live in the city.
Right.
They have a stake
Yep.
in what we do here, so.
Absolutely, and that'll be, they would definitely be open, they'd be welcomed, really. And we would ask them, okay, what's again, their association with the city? Just so that we can kind of look at, okay, this might be the priorities of the business community, these might be the priorities of the neighbors. And it just helps us build out that profile, and then it helps inform the interview process.
He's been.
I got 25 seconds. Thank you very, very much. Call, text, email. If something comes up, by the end of the week, you will have a list of times that I'm available. Just let me know. We'll put it on the calendar. We can either do it via Teams or just a phone call, whatever works for you. You'll have both options in there.
Now, any information we're gonna get from you, is that gonna come through Brenda? Or do you have all our individual?
I have a
emails?
list, as long as you use it. I've been in communities where they don't use their city email. Brenda will always be kept in the loop, especially in case she hears something from you, Scott, and you say, oh, I haven't seen this, what the heck's going on with the search? Brenda, did you see your email on this day, right? So I always like to make sure there's a staff connection as well. But I like to make sure that we have that open line as well in case you have that question burning that you need to ask, or you happen to, when we send the profile, you happen to see we missed a typo, you can just respond to me directly. But just so you're aware, I will BCC everybody. That's just something I've been doing for years. It's to try to prevent that inadvertent reply all that someone could potentially throw in your face that you're deliberating outside of council meetings. So that's just an extra step of protection, if you will.
All right.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I want to open it up to public comment. If anyone has a comment they'd like to make, please step up to the podium, make a comment.
Good evening, I'm Tamara Horn, a resident of the city of Whitehall. Just gonna throw out a few things that came up as you all were throwing your ideas on the board. The hierarchy of this is kind of messing with me, like I don't know, I think I'm asking one of you to champion, if you're willing, some of the ideas I'm throwing out there to put them on the list for consideration. I was gonna mention for the housing discussion, the way I look at it is, do we have a resident that has graduated from Whitehall High School that could find housing with a job that is available in the area? And it's true that affordable would be different for other levels, and we need those too, but as far as like, we don't want our young people to move away or feel like they have to move away when they graduate from high school. I was gonna mention a skill that might be really useful, and this is in part because our staff is small and we have this small city that the city manager has to wear a lot of different hats. And one of those, I think, includes for us grant writing skills. So maybe that's something that we can look for experienced and successful grants that the candidate has written. And then the last thing I was gonna mention is community engagement. You know, we're sitting out here and we don't have a chance to put them on there, and I heard that there will potentially be a survey, but I'd be interested to hear how that city manager candidate engages with the community that they've worked with in the past. What does that look like for them? How do they hear? Or is it, I mean, maybe the role will be strictly between the council and the city manager. But I would like to see a little more than that, someone that would have some time to hear and work with residents as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? Hearing none? All right, we're adjourned. Next meeting starts at 6 o'clock. For the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
All right. I want to remind council to please use your microphone so everyone can hear. So, lean them close, talk close. First up is approval of the agenda.
I'll move for approval of the agenda for April 8, 2025.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. We have an agenda. Next is special presentation from the Playhouse Committee. Frank, you're up.
Thank you. I have a few notes here, so I'll begin with that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for listening to the Playhouse Committee first thing this evening. We're happy to be here. What I'd like to present is the recommendations from the Playhouse Committee to the Council. And basically, the way that I formulated these is in kind of four major areas. Recommendations that would be made to the staff to be included in your 2025-26 budget. But I'd like to run through those. And then operational recommendations that would impact the budget but would be implemented by the Playhouse staff. And then recommendations to the City Council. And then finally, some recommendations on commitments for the future. But what I thought I would do first, the committee has spent a great deal of time on the finances, and particularly looking at the last 5 years, looking at the performance each year. And We've worked with Alyssa from the city staff, and we've gone through these figures. I can't tell you how many times, and I think we have them as accurately as they can be. They're out of your audits for the last 4 years, and then this current year, our projections. But given that, over the 5 years, the Playhouse revenue has been $1.425 million. And the Playhouse expenditures over that time have been $1,506,000. So on average, for the 5-year period, and this includes a projection for this year of $347,000 as the expenditure. On average, the expenditures have been $305,000, and the shortfall has been $20,000 a year on the 5-year average. This year, however, we are projecting a shortfall at this point of $44,000. Now, we still have 3 months to go on the fiscal year, and some of our biggest fundraising efforts are in this last 3 months of the fiscal year. So keeping that in mind, we're optimistic that we'll do better, but we still have to raise the funds. So I want to point that out to you. I believe the material has been distributed to you individually, so I'm not going to read every single item on the recommendations. The recommendations to the staff are primarily increases in fees and looking at increases in revenue. So we're looking at ticket pricing increases, we're looking at beverage increases, we're looking at the flex ticket or the season ticket holder increases, and we're also looking at fundraising efforts that would be much more enthusiastic, I think, this year than any other year, because we're learning how to do this for the Playhouse a little more. We're also recommending that the rentals for the Playhouse be increased rather substantially, almost double. But the reason for that is that we have compared rental fees at other places, including the Ramsdale, the Frauenthal, the Muskegon Museum of Art, and all of them seem to have rental fees that are quite a bit more than what was being charged for the Playhouse. And I believe Alyssa and Laureato also worked on issues on the committee, felt that about $1,600 a day on the rental for the full theater would be just about right in terms of what the expenditure levels are. So we are recommending that as well. And then our major event, we're looking to do a major event that's coming up this May 1st, so please put it on your calendar to introduce the summer season. And of course, at that time, it's a fundraiser as well. So we're looking for sponsorships. We're looking for season ticket purchases. And this year, we're looking at charging $30 for admission to that event. And next year, we're looking to up it rather substantially and make it more of a gala type of event. So those are the recommendations that are fund related that would be incorporated by the staff in your 2025-26 budget. And so be aware that those would be coming. And it certainly would be beneficial to the Playhouse. On the operational side, we're recommending to management that they make an effort to use the theater at 180 user days a year. And Beth Beeman had put together a list of current uses, and I think that is pretty instructive in that last year there were almost 220 days of use, over 55 events that actually occurred in the theater, and we're likely to do substantially more than that in this coming year. And of course, the objective of the theater for the long run is to make it a community center. And I think if you look at that list that Brenda Bourdon just put out, you'll see that there's a great deal of community events that are going on in the theater. And actually, I was rather startled when I looked at the whole list as to how much it is really being used, because you sort of lose track of that as you go through the year, but there's almost something going on there every day. And it may not be as apparent sometimes because plays and performances take preparation before you actually stage the event. You have rehearsals, so on and so forth. The other thing that we're recommending, in addition to the 180 user days, is that the Playhouse operations be limited in January and February. One of the observations was that the events that were held there in January and February were pretty successful. There were youth events, and there were, I believe there was a bubble thing, I don't quite understand it, it's out of my time, but that filled the Playhouse. But those could have easily been scheduled in March and April. They sort of come in, set up their program and do it. And then it saved you the utility and the management costs, the cleaning and all the things that go with running a theater in that period of time. There is an exception to that, though, is that if you get a promising, good paying event, don't pass it up. You can fire up the theater for a day or 2 days or whatever the case may be. The other small recommendation that we're making is that they add a donation box in the lobby to support the theater, just to drop your $1 in or drop your $5 bill in or whatever the case may be, because it's surprising how much that actually works. I do a little volunteering with our Museum of Art, and we have one of those, and several $1,000s a year suddenly come in out of this little box that people drop the money in, and most people that go to the theater actually support it. We're also recommending that they carry a small line of product that advertises the theater. One of the problems that the theater's had is that we've never had enough money to really market and advertise the theater. But a part of it is to sell a hat or sell a t-shirt or sell a button that I was at the Playhouse. And not only do you make a little money on that, it's not much, it probably ain't going to impact your budget much, but it also carries the word throughout the community and throughout the state, actually. One of the items that was questioned at one of the meetings that I attended here was the thermostat setting, and I believe the staff right now are making movements to get that under control so that thermostats can be set simply through the computer and not by having to go in and manually change every thermostat every time the temperature changes or that they have a need. The last item that we're recommending is that we do a 50-50 fundraiser next year, 50-50 raffle, which can be sponsored by the Friends, because the Friends are a 501c3, and then just run it for the entire year. It would be like a $20,000 fundraiser, and half of it would go to the winner of the raffle. Again, you pick up $10,000, and it's a pretty easy thing to do. You just sell them as you put on productions throughout the year. So those are the recommendations to the staff for the budget, and there are also recommendations to you for the budget, but they wouldn't appear until later. And then the operational recommendations pretty much would be implemented by the staff, because we want to leave some flexibility there. Like the rentals, for example, if they have a nonprofit, or for sure if the city wants to rent it for some of their events, that certainly would be within their bailiwick. And then recommendations for the city council. The city owns the facility, and the city owns the theater and the scene shop. And I think is a very strong recommendation that the city commit to taking care of that building. The utilities, the heating, the lighting, and the maintenance and the cleaning. We just can't continue to have the Beth and Cindy Beth cleaning that facility and doing what they should be doing to promote the theater. And when we're asking for that commitment, we're hopeful and we're working to cover all the costs by running the theater in the black. But it's hard to run a little theater in the black, and I want to be very candid with you about that. If you go around to any theater in the country, even the very successful ones, you've probably all heard of the Purple Rose in east side of the state, which is Jeff Daniels Theater, and he supports it and supports it heavily. It's having financial problems, just like you're experiencing here. The COVID took the audience away, and we're trying to build it back. And we think we can do it, but it's gonna take us a while. So our recommendation is that you make that commitment for 5 years, and you begin it with the 2025-26 budget. There's been a lot of dialogue as to where you would take the money from. Should it be the general fund? Should it be taxpayer funds? Should it be, what should it be? I just wanted to give you a little anecdote about taxpayer funds, because the theater is loved by many more people than just people that live in Whitehall. But I think that those people stepped up and contributed almost $3.5 million, almost $4 million to make this theater happen. And I just want to use one example of that. A friend of mine and a well-known philanthropist in Muskegon, the couple, John and Linda Hill, have lived around Whitehall for many years. They lived in Fruitland Township and Laketon Township and Montague, and they moved all over the place. But they were very generous. They committed $500,000 to the Playhouse, and they've paid the $500,000. It's interesting that they've never paid a bit of taxes to the city of Muskegon, to the city of Whitehall. But if you looked at the taxes that would be generated to raise $500,000 in this community, it would have been on a $200,000 home, 330 years of taxes. So I think that if we look at what people have done outside the community, it has been. And I used to be in the government. I use the term tax sharing basis, and this certainly is somewhat similar to a tax base sharing with the city in terms of the private contributions or the outside the city contributions that were made. So we don't think that we're asking a horrible amount. And then to put it in perspective of the city's total budget, if we look at this year's total budget, it's $12.4 million for the city, and to do $50,000 would be about 0.004%. Pretty small amount for a pretty big benefit. So again, we recommend that you commit to $50,000 on an annual basis to operate the facility and to keep it clean. And then finally, for the future, I wanted to make a few comments about an endowment fund, because we talked about an endowment fund previously, and we went back and looked, and initially I thought that we shouldn't really work on an endowment fund right now because we still have some capital that has to be paid, and you want to get that collected first. But then in reviewing it with Scott Hubler and Alyssa, we found out that there's only $120,000 left to be paid. $60,000 this year, 40-some thousand next year, which is phenomenal. So all the commitments are in. And in my mind, that kind of opens up the door for us to begin work on an endowment campaign. Now it'll take a while to do that, but if we're successful, and over time we surely will be, it may take longer than we would hope, but if you raise $1 million for an endowment fund, generally speaking, the rule under the current financial scenario is that about 4% can be used each year for operations. And so you would have the $40,000 that would come in for operation. If we were able to successfully make it to $1.5 million, you would have 60 for operations. We think that's doable, and then what you set up with an endowment fund is a legacy program as well. So you never give up raising endowment fund, you just continue to do it all the time. But you start with the campaign, and then you follow up with a legacy giving program so that people leave it in their estates or in their estate planning. And the feasibility of that, on the surface, appears to be really good, but we need to really sit down and start looking at the contributors of the past and what our potential is for that, and then organize a campaign to do that. And I think the Friends for sure would be willing to assist in that endeavor. So finally, I think that the view of the committee and the view of the Friends as well, which I can express, is that the Playhouse is an asset for the city, it's an asset for the quality of life, it's an asset for economic development, it's an asset for not only the city of Whitehall, it is an asset for everyone, but it's like the Museum of Art, or the Montague Weather Vane, or the band shell, or it's what makes this whole Muskegon community a wonderful community to be in. And so we strongly recommend that you support it, and we appreciate your time, and we're available for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for that wonderful report.
Thank you.
I know you did a lot of work on it. Please pass our thanks on to the committee.
Okay, do it.
I
Thank you.
personally support the recommendations that you've made and hope this council will do so likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, questions?
I have a question on the accounts payable. On page 2 of 5, in the middle of the page, we've got the Motorola Solutions, the body cams and in-car video system for 19,000 plus. Is that the annual rental or
Annual fee
annual?
includes the purchase, the cloud storage, and everything that goes with it,
Okay, so that's a once a year.
once a year.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
On accounts payable, Proud Fit Services, that is the old pizza,
114 Thompson, correct.
104 North Thompson, that's the
104.
pizza place. Okay, now, does that include the tanks that were discovered under there, or is that an extra expense, or?
The total contract, I believe, was $34,000. They billed us for 31. It was, the base bid was 27, an additional 7 for the tanks.
Oh, so it was, so that includes.
Yeah, there was not an additional cost, it was part of their bid should they discover the
Oh.
tanks,
Okay,
which they did.
thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Hey Tanya, please speak
Can't
up.
hear you.
Please speak up to the microphone.
How's this?
Not more.
Closer.
I just think I have a bad mic. I'm not used
You need to
to,
be closer. You need to be closer.
I don't see everybody else that close.
Nope.
Okay,
Your
just,
turn.
I'm trying. The capital improvements, I think I asked last year if we could talk about streets in a work session. I'd like to put that on a work session. I'd like to have a better idea of the priority, so when people ask what street is up next, I know, like, just, when I was on council before, we had a list that this, and this, and like, it's the first time I noticed Alice Street is gonna be 5 more years, and if you live on Alice Street, you know that it's getting bad now. I can't imagine. And we need good streets. We need good streets because it wrecks your car. It wrecks your car if you drive over it regularly. I remember Mears, I was driving on the other side of the road, you know, trying to avoid the potholes. So I think we need to talk about it. I know it's expense, but I'd like to talk about the priority and if there's any way that we can get to some of these sooner. I think you heard me, right?
All right.
Very good.
Anyone else?
Yep, I have one question also on the capital improvement plan. If we approve the consent agenda, does that mean that we're approving the planning commission's capital improvements plan, basically?
You're accepting it as a communication.
Doesn't mean that we're actually approving it, though.
Approval will
Approving
come,
of it. Or approving of it, the way it's written, or?
you're accepting it as a communication. The actual approving of anything in the capital plan comes with the annual budget.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one more thing too. In this communication, there's a property tax education event, and I just wanted to point this out for everybody here. This is a really good class that they're gonna have on April 24 here at 5:30, and it's everything you want to know about property taxes. Assessment notices, bills and millages, how to calculate taxes, border review and exemptions, and I think this is going to be a really good thing for a lot of people, so I wanted everybody to know about it. I'm done.
Okay.
I got one more thing I forgot,
Okay.
sorry. On the Walk the Beat letter, I just want to clarify that drinking of adult beverages within the social district is for consumption of said beverages only bought from the 3 approved places, and it's not BYOB. I just, the way it was written and where it's written for, to extend the social district all the way over to that park. As far as me personally goes, if I bought a beer up on top of the hill up here and was walking all the way down there, the beer would be gone before I ever got there. So, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that, and that people know that, you know, they're not gonna be able to go down there and listen to music and take their cooler with them and open their Bud Light or whatever.
It is correct.
And I'd just like to verify that's only for the one day, it's not a permanent extension.
Well, if you, and we will probably bring this to a future work session. I don't know if it's going to be timely for this event. There's been some general discussion with the council, but nothing definitive as far as expanding our social district. You cannot, well, you probably could, it'd be very complicated to extend the social district for a single day. The city council does have the authority to allow alcohol in any of the parks under a special use permit, which requires insurance, fencing. Depending on the event type, we might also require police presence. That's how you can get a single or a 2-day approval. But for the social district, that's basically, we're extending it, and we would maintain it on a year-round basis.
Okay, because I did question the legal and insurance on that too. I mean, I would hope that we could do it for the one day, but so let's leave it there.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Consent agenda is approved. Next up is messages. Mayor, city council, and city manager. Let's start with the city council. Steve, you have anything?
I have nothing tonight.
Scott?
Let me look at my notes here. Nope, nothing for right now, thank you.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Tom?
I feel like I should, I like the White Lake Mirror. I read it all the time, but I think they added to the confusion and anger and everything else related to the vote on the back facility. In their article here, the headline is Whitehall Council approves senior millage allocation, and their subheading says new allocation will no longer cover seniors walking at the back facility. That was factually wrong. We voted for $9,000 instead of $10,000, hoping that the school would accept, that the back would accept the $9,000. We did not vote to make people stop walking in the back or to take away their right to walk in the back for free. And, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on about this, and part of the reason was because of this headline being factually wrong in the Mirror. So I hope they'll be more careful in the future.
They have corrected that in the most recent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Deb?
Yeah, I see a lot of people here from the Friends of the Playhouse and supported the Playhouse, and I just want to thank everybody for all the work that you guys did to put that information together, and the summary and the recommendations. I know it was a lot of work, and you guys spend a lot of time, so it's definitely appreciated, and look forward to talking about it further in the rest of the council meeting. Secondly, it looks like we will be, we're searching for a new city manager as Scott is retiring, and we'll be putting a survey out to solicit input on attributes and things like that of what you guys would look for in a new city manager. So I hope you'll watch for that. I think it's going to be on the city website, potentially Facebook. I hope you'll watch for that and send input. It's really valuable, and we want your opinion. So glad everybody's here. Thank you all for coming.
Tanya?
Oh, I would just like to add to Tom's comment.
Microphone.
Just like to add to Tom's comment about the mirror, and I appreciate that we have reporters. I mean, maintaining a weekly is a challenging thing, so I'm glad that we have the 2 newspapers, and I'm glad that they corrected it. I also want to note that the superintendent of the schools on social media seemed to kind of catch it pretty quick too, but it's the, maybe don't always believe everything you read in the paper sometimes. I wanted to mention one thing that is related to a project that I'm working on because I've got so many folks here. People who know me know that I have a long history of being involved in White Lakes restoration, and I am working with a scientist friend of mine to write the White Lakes Environmental History, a book this year. And April 27th, we are inviting members of the community in at the Book Nook at 3 p.m. just to share their stories. We want to make it, a community-oriented project because I know a lot of people, there's people who worked at the companies, people who were activists, people who were involved, and people who just love the lake. And so we're inviting people there as an open house to come and offer their thoughts. And I'm glad to see so many people here, and maybe that's something that you're interested in. Nook, 3 to 5. It's like an open house. We'll have cookies and coffee. You can bring photos if you want, bring some stories, and chat with other folks. It's going to be kind of informal, and we're just going to announce that we have this book project this year, and that people can participate in it. Thank you.
All right. As mayor, I would like our director of DPW to step forward and introduce his new employee. Brian Armstrong, the man, the legend.
Right. This is Chase.
Come on up. Come on up to the microphone. Into the light.
He just joined our crew here recently. He was with the Parks and Cemetery crew for 3 years. So, thank you, Chase. And Nolan, sorry, Roger. He was just promoted to crew leader. So.
Congratulations. Yeah, you got a strong back.
Yes,
Thank you. Welcome to Whitehall's DPW team. City manager.
Well, I'll pass the baton or the handcuffs, whatever you want to call them, and invite Chief Roger Squires to introduce the incoming police chief.
Yes.
It is an honor for me. I came here 14 years ago. Brandon was lieutenant, and I spent the first 2 years walking into his office every day going, is this really the way we do this? And for the 14 years, I've been intentional in preparing him for a succession plan that he would take over, and I'm proud to say that he has lived up to that dream of mine that he would be ready, and I leave this city in very capable hands.
When is it that you're done?
What's that?
When is it that you're retiring?
May 31st.
May 31st. Thank you for your service. Anything else, city manager?
No, sir.
All right, with that, we'll move on to public comment. Anyone wanting to make a public comment, please step up to the microphone, give your name, and please try to limit it to 3 minutes. Here we go.
I'll be quick. Okay. I'm Tamara Horn, resident of the city of Whitehall. I have mainly an announcement that electronics recycling event we're going to do is spring 1. This year is going to be on May 24th from 2 to 4. We're doing it at the Montague Farmers Office Market because it's real easy to drop off. You can drive your car up. This is open to any resident in the White Lake area or businesses that have computers, printers, cords, old phones, laptops. The only thing we're asking is no cathode ray tube items, but you can bring anything else electronics. Like if you switched out your smoke detectors because they were old, you can put that in there. If the coffee pot went bad, you can put the coffee maker in there. So we have suggested donation of $2 for the first 10 items, $5 for a bigger load than 10 items. And I did bring one flyer. Maybe the city would be willing to put it up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. It's a great event that I took advantage of myself last year, so thank you very much.
No,
Next.
you can bring batteries and light bulbs and inkjet cartridges as well.
Thank you. Great.
Hello everyone, I'm Amy Yonkman. I'm from Catchmark Technologies. I'm here on behalf of Catchmark Sportsnet and Catchmark Community. We have 2 programs, and they're volunteer programs, but they are called the News Nuts and the Sports Nuts. And we are seeking volunteers, essentially. We are a small team, but we really want to be making an impact in the community on the sports side and on the community side, and community is more news related. We want to bring news stories of the area out. This is the whole White Lake area, but we need people to help us do that. You can take pictures. If you're into writing, you can write. We're willing to teach. And we really would like to work with the schools or with any members of the community. If you have some time or if you have a heart on it to volunteer with us, you can go on either of our websites and there's information on there. Or if you want to stop and see me after the meeting, you can, and I can give you my card, get a hold of me. But we're very open to teaching, helping. We just need some help getting the news out there in our community on the sports and the news side. Thank you.
What is your website?
Catchmark Sportsnet and Catchmark Community, both.com.
So if you volunteered for this, where would the news go? On your website?
On our websites. We're completely digital, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. Terry Hample. I live in your neighboring community of Fruitland Township. I have served in a lot of ways in the last 10 years, but the most important thing that I want to talk about today is how we have built a wonderful recreation area on 300 acres in Fruitland Township, and that's called the Duck Creek Natural Area. You've probably seen our signs, and you may have driven down Zeller Road to the intersection of Michelinda Road and seen the sign that says Bridge 3 here. That sign went up with our support and the support of Howmet, who owns that property on the other side of Zeller Road. We are using the property with their permission to get giant logs down the road and down the hill to build a bridge, the 3rd bridge in the natural area, which will serve anyone who'd like to come out and hike. And we just are inviting everyone right now to come out and help with the bridge if you'd like to, and also take a walk. We call it go take a hike. But some of the scenery you'll see, I just want to show you a couple pictures. This is the 2nd bridge we built on Duck Creek, another site of it. And the 3rd one will actually be on Duck Creek too, to just the west of the 1st bridge here. So we are very graciously thanking everyone who's helped us go this far in the last 10 years. We started as a nonprofit, and we're still a nonprofit. We've accepted donations and funds from the Community Foundation to the tune of about $2,200 or $22,000 now. The White Lake Area Women, some $10,000, have helped us build the 2nd bridge. And then lots of private donations. So, of course, we always encourage those donations. And we just want everybody to know that this is a community building project. We care about health. We care about recreational facilities for people. And we are inviting Whitehall schools to bring their STEM projects out there, and we will help them. Most of our volunteers are teachers. We have a geologist. We have a botanist. We have engineers. We have all kinds of scientists that are helping to build this recreation area. And we want to get kids out there now to build their careers around STEM projects or any other thing they want to do on the trails. So please, pass the word. If I could leave these brochures for you to hang on the bulletin board, I'd love to do that. Can you guys hang some here?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Those are maps and information about the trails. So thank you.
Next.
I'm not coming up for comment, I'm just changing batteries.
Battery's bad?
I think it died.
What was I gonna say? Talk among yourselves. We just need batteries.
Our wonderful Playhouse director, Beth Beeman. Not only does she direct the Playhouse, clean the toilets, sweep the floor, change the batteries.
On occasion. So it'll cost you extra.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Now we're back live again. There you go.
Makes noise.
Next up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kelvin Goff, resident of Whitehall. First, I'd like to also thank the Playhouse Committee, great job. And also all the residents that showed up for the various meetings. I was at one of them. And it was nice to hear from the community that showed up to express their views to the Whitehouse Committee. Based on the recommendations that I heard, it sounds to me like the city owes the city a couple of years minimum to support the Playhouse to have the recommendations that they recommended implemented, paying off the Playhouse, the money that's due, getting the endowment started and working all their fundraisers and all that, hopefully 5 years. When I attended the Playhouse Committee meeting, we all pay taxes and we all have our favorite things around this town that we enjoy. It's a great city to live in. As I mentioned, I may never use the pocket park, but I'm glad we're going to have it. It's going to be a nice addition to our city. I don't use the splash pad, but again, I'm glad we have it. A lot of you are thinking you're glad that you don't see me using the splash pad. But if somebody was to ask me, you know, Kevin, how would you like to see your tax dollars spent? It would be for the Playhouse. I love the things that go on there. I was happy to hear that it's heading in the direction of both the Playhouse and the community center. And I just think that, in my opinion only, we should give it a couple of years, if not the full 5 years, to see if everything they implement solves the issues with funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Doesn't sound like anyone else wants to speak, so we will move on to the next item, which is old business. I don't believe we have old business to deal with.
No, sir.
All right. New business, Playhouse Committee recommendations. Looking for a motion of support.
I'll make a motion to support the Playhouse Committee recommendations as submitted.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have 3 letters that were given to me to be read in the public record. I'm going to leave the people's names off of them because I forgot to ask them whether they wanted to remain anonymous or not, but I will give the letters to Brenda for the public record, and they do have the people's names on them. And Scott seemed to think that that was okay.
Okay.
The first one says I do not want my tax money to go to the support of the Playhouse. We have put millions into that place and they want more. I don't know if it is poor management or not enough interest in our community, but they can't seem to remain solvent. I'm not interested in pouring more money into this thing. There are other areas that need attention, such as our roads and sidewalk plowing, and in the winter, excuse me. My taxes continue to rise every year, and I would like to feel better about where they are going. Again, these are, don't shoot the messenger. This one just is to council members. I'm totally against the funding of the Playhouse, as there should be other ways to fund this establishment. Our roads are horrible. In 46 years, I have lived in my house on the corner of King and Johanna. Neither one of those roads have been resurfaced. I was led to believe that they were supposed to be done every 20 years. Our infrastructure is horrible. The city still has to roto-rooter the sewer on the streets. Please don't tie up tax dollar money because of bad management. This one's a little bit longer. Cities owning businesses can be problematic because it can lead to conflict of interest, inefficiencies, lack of accountability, potentially hindering the city's ability to serve its citizens effectively and fairly. Here's a more detailed explanation: conflicts of interest and favoritism. When a city owns businesses, there is a risk that decisions will be made to benefit the city's business interests rather than the best interests of the community. This can lead to favoritism and corruption, as city officials might be tempted to use their position to gain advantages for businesses they own. Inefficiencies and lack of accountability. Public-owned businesses may not be as efficient or responsive as publicly owned businesses, which are driven by profit and competition. They may lack the incentives to innovate, cut costs, or improve services, and they can be insulated from democratic control, making them less accountable to the public. Tax burden. If a city-owned business struggles financially, the city may have to subsidize it with taxpayer money, potentially diverting funds from other essential services like infrastructure or public safety. Reduced innovation and competition. When cities own businesses, it can stifle innovation and competition, as private businesses may be discouraged from entering the market or competing with the city-owned entity. Focus on profit over public good. Cities should prioritize serving the public good, not making a profit. When they own businesses, they may be tempted to prioritize profits over the needs of their citizens. Lack of transparency and oversight. Publicly owned businesses may be less transparent and subject to less scrutiny than private businesses, making it harder for the public to hold them accountable. The Playhouse was a gift to the city. I believe that it's time to pay it forward, gift it to the friends of the Playhouse. The city of Whitehall taxpayers' money already went above and beyond to repair the Playhouse. This needs to stop. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Bottom line is that currently the Playhouse is a money pit for the taxpayers of the city of Whitehall, has been for years. Each one of you council members were voted on here to be a voice for the taxpayers, not to be bullied into one's agenda. Again, as stated above, this is why the city shouldn't own the Playhouse. I love the fact that I'm seeing more and more council members feeling confident at these meetings to voice their general public's concerns and be good stewards with the money that the city of Whitehall have you looking over. $50,000 a year is not a reasonable request. Please vote the request of the Playhouse down. That's the 3 letters that I have.
I just have a question. In this vote, what exactly are we voting on? Are we voting to acknowledge that we received the recommendations? We're not voting to approve, but put these recommendations into practice. Is that what are we voting on?
You're voting to accept the recommendations of the Playhouse Committee. Any Specific actions will come at a later date. As is noted, there's a number of items for next fiscal year, which the city council will review and approve. You're not taking any affirmative action by approving this plan at this point.
Okay, so basically, we're voting to accept their recommendations.
Correct. With the intent that these recommendations will be brought forward to the council at a later time for specific approval or other boards. LDFA will be asked on Thursday whether or not they will be willing to make a financial commitment. And we are still discussing with the city attorney to what extent TIFA can be involved in the Playhouse finances.
That brings up something else. In my opinion, I question whether TIFA or LDFA giving money to the Playhouse, I don't know whether it violates the letter of the law, but I think it violates the spirit of the law, that money that goes into the LDFA is supposed to be spent on the LDFA. Likewise for TIFA. The Playhouse is not in either of those locations. I don't think that's a legitimate way to spend TIFA and LDFA money. I don't know the legality of it.
Anyone else?
I'm conflicted on this for a couple of reasons. I mean, I was on council when we accepted it, and I thought it was a great thing. I'm not someone who goes regularly, but I have supported it verbally. I have supported all of the directors. I think they've been fantastic. When I made the motion, when there was a shortfall, and Debbie seconded it, it was twofold. One, to address the short-term shortfall, the short term. That hasn't really been discussed here. And at the very least, going forward, we probably need to know that there's a shortfall sooner rather than later. Because I had heard informally it was because of a budget decision we made last year in May, but then to find out in February, so that's one thing. Number two, the long-term sustainability. I really appreciate the committee's time. I think there's a lot of good ideas here, but to me, it's a lot of ideas. I was hoping for more of a strategic plan. The Playhouse is that important, and there's a lot of good ideas. Some I like, some I don't. I'm concerned about raising prices. I mean, I'm concerned about pricing out just city residents, and wondering, do we have the ability to research our audience? So raising drink prices and ticket prices and, doubling the room rentals, is that gonna, I don't know. I think I'm mainly concerned with that, with City of Whitehall residents who pay taxes, who feel that they can't afford to go and see a show. On the other hand, I'd like to see us do something like an annual membership. I think people in the White Lake area would gladly pay $30 a year, a membership. I think marketing help is needed. When you look at 180 use days, I don't know how current staffing is going to handle everything. All of these new ideas, merchandise and all these kinds of things, and the use days, and I think staffing is an issue. I would like to have seen this go to a work session first. That's what work sessions are for, where we can discuss before being put into a position where we have to vote yes or no. And I don't feel ready. I understand that it's accepting the recommendations, but I'm not even sure I'm in a place where I can accept the recommendations until we've had a chance to look at them. I'd like to see some metrics, if we're putting these all together into a plan, how do we know how we're doing? There's just a lot of questions, and so I'm disappointed to be put in this position, and I wish that we would have the ability to move it to a work session. I mean, these are budget decisions. You know, we haven't even looked at our budget.
All right.
I got one further comment on my own. I'm not in favor of a 5-year plan. I would be open to possibly a 2-year plan. And I'm not willing to actually say that the marijuana fund needs to pay for all of it. And I definitely don't want any money coming out of it for the general fund. And I would only go along with a 2-year plan as long as it becomes somewhat viable. I mean, somewhere along the line, there's got to be some consequences to what's going on. And there hasn't been any consequences, you know, all along. It's just the city keeps bailing it out. So I would like to see, you know, something done along that line. That's all I have.
I would say one thing too, that I think there needs to be some, you know, there's talk in here about increasing sales and, or sponsorships and so on. But I'd like to see something about, yeah, that's a good idea. Who's gonna do it? When's it gonna be done? Why isn't anybody already doing it? Nobody's calling on businesses for donations, that I could tell. The contribution box in the lobby of the Playhouse, that's a great idea. Why wasn't it done already? Even at the first meeting or so, whenever that was mentioned, why hadn't somebody just gone out and bought a box and done it? You know, it's like, it doesn't inspire confidence in me that anything's going to change. I want the Playhouse to be here, but, you know, there has to be some commitment from somebody to actually go out and do something.
You know, Tom, to answer that, staffing is an issue, and if we had a chance to talk about this thoroughly, I would talk about bolstering our staff. We're gonna burn out our staff. That's why they're not doing all of these things, because it's one of 100 things that they have on their list.
Right, but it's something that, I mean, wouldn't that be in the realm of the Friends of the Playhouse?
They're not
To do that.
staff. They're not staff.
Do they have to be staffed?
No, they're not.
I mean, what, that's just something that's,
They're a nonprofit.
The motion on the table is to accept the recommendations.
I have a comment. I'm gonna kind of agree with Scott here on this 2-year thing. I was thinking 3 because of the fact that there's 2 years owed on this bond that has to be paid off. And I'm thinking that at the end of 2 years, we're gonna know pretty well how this plan is working and whether it's gonna be able to go on its own without this bond having to be paid off in the 3rd year. So I was thinking maybe go 3 years on it, but maybe 2 years would be a good idea. That's just my thoughts on that.
All right.
Yeah, I think that that's a budget question, that when we have the budget discussions, we could do that. I don't know if we do any budget commitments out past the budget that we're working on. So there's there's probably a way around that. We can talk about that. But I mean, there is a piece of it for me that some of the shortfall, I'm not going to call it a bailout because I don't think that's what it is, but there has to be some support from a property that we own. We should be supporting it in some way. That money would not be going towards productions or revenues that come in from ticket sales and all of that kind of stuff. It would be going to support the building, and I think that's important. So I would be in favor of, when we have the budget discussions, we can talk further about the details of how much and how often and when and all of that stuff, where it comes from. But I have always been a big supporter of the Playhouse, and and want it to be there, want to see it thrive, and I think we need to support the building. Because the rest of it, we have a very, very lean staff, they do a good job, but we need to, I think we need to support it wouldn't be operations, what would that be? The heat and the lights and that kind of thing, the maintenance. So.
But I think it would be a good idea, like Tanya said, to have a work session on it. Because if it came to incorporating this directly into the budget, I think we need to do some work on it before it comes to that.
I agree, and I will certainly vote yes to accept the recommendations,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with them at this point. We really just haven't had enough time as a council to discuss it. You know, by the time we get our packet, you know, we don't even have a week. You know, we get our packet on Friday, and Tuesday we sit down and discuss this. So I think I definitely agree that the building needs to be, we need to pay for that. We need to find a way to make this work. And I myself would like to see a strategic plan with steps that are gonna be taken by who, with some metrics. How do we know we're on the right path? But I'm also gonna put on the table when we can discuss it, maybe we need some more staff. I think we're understaffed.
All right, the motion on the table is to accept the recommendations of the committee. I'd like a roll call, please.
Sittinga,
Yes.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Zemer,
Yes.
Hillebrand,
Yes.
Kabala,
Yes.
Brown,
No.
Salter.
Yes. The motion passes. Accept the recommendations. Next is Muskegon County Conservation District proposal. Scott, would you give us a synopsis of this?
Yep, absolutely. Basically, as council knows, and many of the people in the audience knows, we acquired a piece of property on the north end of Tannery Bay for public access to White Lake. And the Conservation District, working with them with the wetlands upstream, as well as some other projects throughout the city, gave us a preliminary design concept of what that site could look like. We are now kind of moving into more of a detailed type of a plan. We've brought in Prine and Newhoff to do the engineering. The Conservation District, at no cost, currently has been working with our representative from Eagle as far as what would be required. And basically, they said they want some engineered drawings versus conceptual drawings. So this is basically a contract. Contracts come to council for review and approval. It doesn't have a set price. Based upon what the district did for us on the preliminaries, you're probably looking at $3,000, maybe $5,000 worth of assistance. And to answer some of the questions that have been brought up before is that the site will take every accessibility item into account. Obviously, it's a steep bank, so we're trying to work on how we can get down to lake level from the higher railroad bed and still please requirements of Eagle. Obviously, they want to be as environmentally sensitive as possible, and concrete and asphalt's not always embraced by Eagle. So we're gonna work through that. So this is basically, they gave an hourly rate and a mileage rate. So just asking council to approve this so that we can keep this project moving forward.
All right,
I've got a question.
we need a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion to approve the Muskegon Conservation District's proposal.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Scott, so specifically, what are the constraints of the easement? What are they not gonna allow us to do?
Well, that's a matter of discussion. There is some restrictions as far as development in the easement, but then there's also some latitude of allowing certain things, the things that we're looking to implement. We've had our attorneys take a look at it and they feel that we can move forward with the items we want to. And in discussions with Eagle, it appears as though they realize there are some things that we can do. Primarily, the easement was to prevent a private developer from putting homes, hotels, restaurants, or anything on there. But it does allow for certain public access development. By development, it's going to be very low key.
Well, it is a conservation easement. I suppose there's no possibility we can get a little more land from Eastbrook to add to it?
Probably not at this point.
It's a pretty narrow strip.
It's a small piece. I think it's roughly, I don't know if it's an acre or two. But we're gonna develop as best we can.
I have a question. It says supplementing contributions from the city of